everybody. Welcome to another Facebook Live. Okay, my name is Rick Berube. We are here today with Ofir and Shawn Barashy. Welcome to the show, guys. As you can hear, the studio audience goes crazy. They're a little rambunctious today. Don't let them bother you. They're just here to support. All right, guys. Well, tell us a little about yourself. How long have you been doing this? Your office, your location, all that good stuff, please.
Shawn, you want to start?
Sure.
Okay, sure. So our office is at Sahara and Tanea. I think it's called the West Side office. I've been doing commercial real estate only since 1995. I originally was a partner at a company called Lee and Associates. I started with them in around June 1995, and we had the office for about 20 years. And in 2015, I moved to Berkshire Hathaway. My specialty is more industrial. I started being the industrial specialist at Lee and Associates back in 1995, surveyed the entire market, built up a database that later on we sold to CoStar. And over the years, I've done pretty much everything in commercial, from office, retail, development, some multifamily, and of course industrial, which is my specialty and my passion.
Nice. So explain to them what industrial, like when you do industrial, what does that mean exactly?
So industrial is warehouses, factories. So if you drive along the I-15, especially north of the Spaghetti Bowl, you're going to start seeing a lot of big boxes, concrete tilt-up buildings, where you have, the most notable ones are like Amazon that you'll see on the side of the freeway, Prologis. So my specialty was to do leasing and sales of those industrial buildings where you'll have distribution, warehousing, and manufacturing. I've done anywhere from small 3,000 square foot sales up to about almost 400,000 square foot one building. And the industrial, the way you identify, you see a lot of roll-up doors on the side of the building, and typically that would be an industrial building.
Roll-up doors, and they have those nice little entries there with the padding on the side for the trucks.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, that's the insulation for weather stripping.
Right.
We call them skirts. Yeah.
Right. Cool. All right, Shawn. Awesome. Thank you very much. Okay, Ofir, how about you, my man?
I've been doing commercial real estate now for about 2 years. I started out at a company called Marcus and Millichap. They specialized in investment sales, and so that's the direction that I went as well. And now I joined Berkshire probably about 5 months ago, and Shawn and I started a team together. I focus primarily on office and medical office properties, so I work a lot with doctors and investors of healthcare properties in Nevada. And I also do mainly sales, but I'm starting to get into a lot more leasing as well.
Nice. So you guys decided to join up and get forces going together, which is good, right?
Yeah, it's the best.
So just give them an idea, okay? Like residential, if you list a home and sell it, and it's probably a 90 to 120 day process. What about commercial industrial? How's that time frame?
So, Ofir, go ahead, because you've done quite a few of them in the last couple of months.
Yeah, industrial is, the process is the same pretty much throughout all commercial. There's typically a 30-day due diligence period and a 30-day close. That's standard, and that's a healthy cycle for start to finish once you get a property under contract.
Mhm.
Usually there's a financing contingency involved because a lot of people on the commercial side get loans to buy buildings. And so, the financing contingency may run parallel to the due diligence period, where it's a 45-day, right? Financing contingency. Some cases it might be a little bit longer. Right now, it's taking lenders quite a bit of time to get loans off the ground. So in some cases, we're putting a couple of these contracts under for about 60 days of the financing contingency and 30 days for due diligence. So that could be 90-day close. But in general, that's pretty standard. Usually, we don't go too far over a 90-day close because time kills deals. And if you want to get a deal done, you get a deal done. There's no reason to mess around.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that's exactly how it is for a lot of investment properties, and even owner user will take about the same time. So an owner user means that a business owner is renting right now or is owning a smaller building, is looking to relocate to a larger building or even a smaller, it doesn't matter. And then he will do typically what we call a small business administration loan. That would take a little longer because there's two components to this loan. It's got the SBA office, which have to approve the loan, as well as the private bank side. Another type of loan would be in development. So I've done
Mm.
quite a few uh, vacant land development from the ground up, took a property, sold it to a developer, designed the project, went through either zoning or architectural, civil, structural, and then closed. And that could take quite a bit longer. Probably some of the residential agents that do residential development would know that you probably run through the city anywhere between 3 to 6 months just to change zoning. And a lot of developers don't want to lock themselves into a parcel of land unless they have the zoning and the approval of the project at hand before they close and get the funding. As well as the capital partner would not want to commit to a loan to this property unless they know what the end project going to look like.
Mm.
So those type of escrows, we're right now, I think we just closed one um, that took us over 6 months just
Yeah.
to get the escrow closed. And right now, the city and the county are lagging in getting the approvals, so it could even take longer.
Mm. But it sounds like if you want to get exercise some creative juices, learn, get more educated, because this isn't a standard transaction, right? Some of these things you have to add a lot of creativity, who
Yeah,
connections, right, to keep this stuff going.
for sure.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
one thing in commercial that different than residential, it's never a cookie cut. There
Right.
is It's not a boring escrow, let's put it this way. Ofir is involved with multiple escrows right now, and there is a lot of due diligence material that have to be generated and delivered. There's a lot of inspections. It's not, I've noticed in residential inspection, it's pretty much the same. It's a set price, fairly inexpensive. It's in and out. In commercial, it's a lot more involved, and the agent needs to be knowledgeable in the building he's selling. What is the product? Is it an industrial? If it's an office, it's even more complicated than industrial because there's a lot more components. There's air conditioning. There's examination room. There is could be a surgery center. So it's very much involved, and you have to specialize in it to give a good service to your client.
Right. You have to be educated in what you're doing, which takes time to be able to do. Otherwise, you're a hindrance to the transaction, not helpful. So a lot of this takes experience to build up in order to be able to, deliver the product that you're talking about.
Right.
Correct. Yeah, experience is extremely important because the more escrows, the more leases you do, you encounter problems that if you've done one or two, you don't see it. But the more you do, the more problems you encounter, and the next time you come in front of this kind of a situation, you know how to solve it. Also, another aspect to it is not just sales. When you do leases, I think we just lost Ofir. It looks like.
I think he's back though. There he is.
Okay, I fear we lost
Lost
you
you.
for 3 minutes. Yeah. So when you do leases in a first situation, when he does a lot of investment deals, he understands how the leases are structured. So when discussing with the investor, he is well aware of all the positive and negatives of each lease. Advise the investor what could be the outcome over the next few years that the lease is in effect.
Right.
There you
And
go.
I'll give an example here too. You mentioned to take some creativity on the commercial deals. We have a deal right now that's in escrow, and the deal probably wouldn't have gone under contract if we didn't find a creative solution to the financing side. Because right now we're in a period in the market where financing is a little challenging to get, but interest rates are rising up. Cap rates, which is the return on your investment, are still relatively low. They haven't quite caught up to interest rates yet. And so the margin that investors can make is pretty slim today, especially when it comes to financing. When it's a cash on cash deal, when you pay all cash, then it's a little bit of a different story. But what we had to do with this deal is we noticed that there was a loan on the property, an existing loan on the property, and we noticed that the interest rate on that loan was about 4.66%, when at the time interest rates were about 6.5. Now they're about 7. I think after tomorrow, they'll probably rise up another 50 basis points. And so we'll really start to see the market shift. Long story short, we managed to figure out a way to make the loan assumable so that the buyer could assume a lower interest rate with a better loan rather than having to get new financing at a higher interest rate, which wouldn't make the numbers work. So you're right,
Right.
Rick. I mean, you have to do some creative things in this field, and I think they do the same thing on the residential side, where you have to really get creative with how you make the deal work. And so right now we're in what I would consider to be a broker's market. It used to be a seller's market where everyone was selling their property and getting really, really high rates. But on the way to a buyer's market, which I think we're on track to, there's this period in between called a broker's market where it really depends on how well your agent can do in putting a deal together and making sense of a deal. So that's kind of where we're seeing ourselves right now.
That's a great way to explain it. I remember I'm from New England originally, so I mean, I remember in my career selling there. I mean, one time I sold a 12-unit apartment building with a convenience store, all in the same property. That was pretty.
Yeah.
Talk about creativity and the way they do the appraisals for those, and then I've sold land and new construction, and I even did a big lease, like you were saying, Shawn, with a company that used a lot of it for warehousing and some manufacturing. But if you once again now, if you're going to go down this road, so let's tell them. Okay, so let's say, and I've had agents, at the Sahara branch that work for Jack and Jack Woodcock, and I've had agents go, okay, how do I want to get into this type of thing because it's definitely never boring, right? But you got to have, I would say, a slightly different attitude, mentality if you want to go into commercial, industrial, and so forth. So give them a little. If I'm somebody that wants to get into that field, what are some of the things you'd recommend for me to do?
Yeah, I'll go first and then I'll let Shawn jump in after that. So, first of all, you need to focus. You need to really spend your time on the commercial side. There are a lot of agents who do residential and then they do a little bit of commercial. but you'll never be able to really get a lot of commercial deals that way because of opportunity cost. You're spending all of your time focusing on the residential side, and you're doing some commercial on the side when your residential clients have commercial deals that they want you to work on, right? But when it comes to specializing, because there's a difference in the actual property between residential and commercial, there's a difference in the process between residential and commercial, then your likelihood of closing a deal drops a little bit because you're just not familiar with it as much. Now, there are a lot of agents who do both residential and commercial, and they do them both well. But in general, if you want to go into commercial, you need to deep dive into it. You got to go ahead first and you got to focus and database your commercial clients. You got to really specialize in a specific type of asset. So just like, you've got Ivan Scher who specializes in luxury homes versus,
Right.
maybe there are mobile homes and other types of residential properties, right? There's a specialty on the commercial side as well. I do office and medical office. Shawn does industrial. There are agents who do retail. There are agents who do multifamily, which is apartments. There are agents who do assisted living and just focus on a small niche like that. So you really want to find the type of property you want to focus on. You want to spend your time databasing a large list of those clients, get all the ownership record for it, and just start to hit the phones. A lot of cold calling ends up in deals, and that's how I would recommend going about it.
Yeah, it also sounds, Ofir, like if I want to exercise my business skills and get involved in businesses. You mentioned cap rates and income and all that kind of stuff. That would be something that I would probably want to consider if I found those things interesting.
Yeah,
Right.
you're right. In general, commercial tends to be a more analytical type of real estate. It focuses more on the financials because a lot of it is financially driven, right? You're a business trying to find a space for yourself, or you're an investor trying to put your cash somewhere and get a good return. Residential, a lot of it is, homeowners. You want to find a house to live in, and so you're just worried about the mortgage and is the house nice, and do you like the paint, and do you like all these kind of more emotional things. Whereas on the
Yeah.
commercial side, you don't care about the color paint that the interior has. You don't really care about the tiles. You don't care about, where the roof has shingles or tiles. I mean, there are some things where you do want to get granular about, but in general, it's about the investment. What's the return I'm getting? What's the strength of the tenant? What's the credibility? How's the location? What's happening around there, what's getting developed around there. So you're focused more on the economic side of the property versus the maybe more emotional side of it on commercial.
Yeah.
Very
I
good.
think that's the best, logic versus emotion, right? Because buying a home is an emotional situation where getting involved in what you're talking about is all about the numbers and so forth, mostly.
Yeah.
How about you, Shawn? What would you say?
Well, if somebody want to get into commercial, they need a lot of patience. A lot of patience, and they need to understand that in order to give the best service they can to their client, they need to study the market for months and months and months. Understand what are you going to sell, what are you going to lease, understand all the agreements that you're going to have to work with, either the leases, the purchase agreements, the loan documents, the title report. You before you do a deal, in my opinion, you have to be completely comfortable that you give your client the best service. Um, if I look at myself, my let's say my route was that when I got into Lee and Associates, for approximately, I would say 60 days, even a little longer than that, I walked every street, every industrial street in Las Vegas. I took
Hmm.
photos of each building, counted how many roll-up doors, who are the tenants inside, what are the pluses and minuses for each building for these tenants. And then I would bring all those photos back in those days. We didn't have cell phones that have cameras, so we had to take Polaroid pictures and
remember the
bring them back,
Polaroid days.
right? Bring the pictures back and then type everything inside. Um, After that, I would go on every contract and I would be very familiar with all the type of leases that are available, all the purchase agreement. I don't think I did any transaction probably for 9 months. Everything was just studying and following a mentor. If you have a good mentor that you has experience and you are attached to him or to her for all the business hours, you will see, the good things and the bad things. You learn their style and you will adapt your own style of how to deal with each client and each transaction. And I think if you have patience and you probably have to kind of like, for a lot of agents that came to me over the years, they thought that immediately they're going to do large transactions and there's commissions within a month and a half or 2 months, which you see that more in residential. And that's not the case in commercial. So you need to have a little money saved aside to live on during the time that you're studying. But I believe that the material that you're going to get and the information you're going to gain over the period of time of being a runner are extremely valuable, and it's a good foundation to be a good commercial agent.
Yeah, great advice. As I always tell them, commercial industrial, you need to have patience or you'll become one.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah, you're right, because it's a different gig. But like Ofir
Yeah.
said, if you like the numbers, it's a kind of a unique combination because you can use the numbers, the logic, but you can also add ideas and originality, like how the property can be used and what all that type of thing too. So it does, and it requires a slice of business too. You have to know business to be able
Sure.
to converse with people at the same time.
Right. Exactly.
Yep.
Ofir came from the background of running a team in a high-tech company. So he had a really number of years, like 6 or 7 years of 8 years. Yeah. And I came from owning businesses since I think it was 1986 that I started my first business. And prior to that, I was working in businesses from clothing store, from food stores, from automotive. And you understand the inside of the business. And that's very helpful for a client that has a business to help him find the correct solution. So we're not just, I mean, we never see ourselves just as agents. We're probably more of advisors
Yeah.
to a client. And prior to um, taking a client, I really like to understand what is their business, what do they do, because a lot of them are different. You could have right now Ofir is working with a powder coating company, so you need to understand what do these businesses need, where do they need to be. Um, if you work with a physician, or if you work with a plumber, or any type of user. At the same time, if you're working with an investor, you need to understand what his or her expectations are. So information and patience are extremely important.
Yeah, information, patience, knowledge. That's why I got into developing and building because I'd worked with builders for so long, saw the ins and outs and what I would do and so forth. So if, it allows you to exercise your entrepreneurial spirit a little bit more too, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun. I took a few projects that I sold land to investors. For instance, next to Southern Hills Hospital, we did the Southern Palms Medical Center. So it was a large piece of land, and you take it through zoning, you take it through architecturals and design, and then structural, and all the issues with topography and where utilities are. Uh, I did probably close to 100 industrial buildings development. It's a lot of fun to get a piece of land and then later on see a 28 building industrial project where all the businesses are inside, working, making money, paying their taxes. It's very fulfilling.
Yeah. Yeah, it is fulfilling. When I go back to New England, I drive around and now and then I'll take my kids to a neighborhood I built or I was involved in or a building. And, even that, I still go by that 12 unit with the convenience store in there. It's been 4 different stores since then. But you know what I did after that was after I sold and closed that on that one, everybody in that little town they had multis. I called them and used that one as an example to see if they
Of
wanted to
course.
sell, right? Which is, so you still got a prospect in this business.
Absolutely. That's
Constant.
it's the prospect, having the market know who you are and what you've done. And then sometimes the business comes to you. If you're a
Yeah.
specialist, if you're an expert in your field, then whoever needs that expertise will look for you and will find you as long as your name is out there.
Right.
So,
And you too, your name is out there. So, any final words you want to leave these lovely people? And I just want to say thank you for taking your time out today, folks. I really appreciate you too.
Yeah,
yeah,
of
pleasure.
course. I would say if you have any questions regarding commercial real estate, reach out to us. We're always open to talking to new people and uh, talking about commercial real estate, explaining anything that you guys have questions about. I'm in the office most of the time. Just find me at the end of the hall at the Sahara building, or just give us a call, send us an email, shoot us a text. We're very accessible.
Very well. We
Thanks
lost
for the
Rick.
time. Right?
Oh, there you go. I was hoping I'd make it on before you guys. I got knocked off again. All right, before I get knocked off again, or you guys do, thank you very much for your time, Ofir and Shawn. I really
Thank you.
appreciate it. All right, guys.
Opportunity.
All
Thanks so much.
right,
Talk to you
everybody.
soon.
Thank you.
Bye bye.